Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
All right, well, Wednesday. Good to be with all of you. Been doing a little bit of reflecting today, and yesterday I had the opportunity to make a video for someone. He was a monk. I met him. He was a monk, and spent about 20 years, I believe, as a monk. And he leads the tours with the monks through the United States, and he's been doing it, I don't know, maybe 30 years. And this is his last tour. So they're putting together a little video of people just recalling good moments, which, by the way, I just know he's gonna hate. You try to give this guy a compliment, yeah, not a good thing. So I had this opportunity to think about my time with this person, and what is it that I would like to bring up. And number one is because of his efforts leading the tours, monks coming from Ganden Chartse Monastery, and they've been doing this, for over 30 years. They have a monastery. Like, that is a huge fundraiser. When China invaded Tibet, Tibetans escaped, there was really nothing for them in India. India gave them some land. I have old images of the first monks going down to southern India, and this is heat, hot, scorpions, they're from the Himalayas. Those wool clothing, not very helpful. They had to learn how to do things different. Many of them died. They had to learn how to farm. They made these mud buildings. And the Tibetans really dug in to recreate the famed Ganden monastery. And in Tibet, people funded monasteries. They made donations. 1/3 of the population was a monk or a nun. It was the best thing you could do, was to be a monk or a nun. And so the monasteries were well supported. They could have 5,000, 8,000 monks, and community supported them. Well, there is no such support in India, and so it's kind of like a modern day alms run. You get a group of monks come out, visit a town for a week, do blessings, healings, whatever, get donations, goes back. And he was on one of the very first tours, and here we are all these years later. He's wrapping up, and he's a very unique individual. He's spicy at times, and so I was groomed actually to replace him, and did so for a bit of my life. But what I guess I wanted to share was, I was reflecting on his efforts, but it brought me to letting him know the impact he had on my life. Here we are today. We're at a Dharma teaching. Some of us are in Carbondale, some of us in New York, some of us, in Palouse, Washington. Some people are here and now, some are then and there. And we have California, and we're gathering, and we have access to these teachings, which is part of my journey. Was I went to hear the monks give a teaching. And I'm just a guy sitting in the audience like you. And these monks were there, and I wanted to hear these teachings. It was at Long Beach Community College. And the Geshe, the Lama giving the talk, was talking about what it means to be a bodhisattva, what it means to have bodhicitta, great compassion. And he just blew me away. He just blew me away. He literally, talked about how everything you do, you can have the motivation and awareness of how this can help all other sentient beings, how your life has an impact, how what you do matters, how, he even went to how going to the bathroom is meaningful. Hopefully good bacteria and things work out, and what gets fed and how our bodies heal. And sometimes you've heard me talk about interdependence, but when he was speaking, like, he lived it, he lived it. And I was quite moved. And some of you know the story a bit, but I was so moved I wanted to learn more. I'm like, okay, how do we do this? And I went out, and there was a little monk at they sell stuff like malas and things like that to fund the monastery. And I'm asking him, hey, how do we, how can I learn more? How can I do this? And he didn't speak much English. He knew how to, charge me $10 for a mala. He knew how to do that. So anyway, I got a mala. And then I went in the parking lot, and that's when I first met Losang Wangchu. And he's a Western monk. He's in the parking lot. And it's like, wow, I can talk to you. And I tell him how inspired I am. And he looked at me, and he told me that the teacher at that Buddhist center that I've been going to is one of the greatest lamas of this whole lineage, a master beyond belief. He wouldn't. He said, you go spend time, volunteer, be around that guy as much as possible. Do that, and that is the way to begin the journey. And it was his advice, meeting him in a parking lot. That had to be like 2002, maybe 2003. Maybe 2000, yeah. And I did that. I volunteered, clean bathrooms and do things like that. It was around the center. And that would lead me to a whole new journey. Side note, when I went at some point to become a monk, got to India, and when you get to India, you get assigned a teacher, and that teacher is responsible. They're kind of like a dad in a family unit. Make sure you're doing your studies, make sure your needs are met. You have this little cohort, this family, and this teacher is kind of in charge of your little family. And I get there, get ordained, become a monk, and they assign a teacher to me. And who's the teacher? He's the monk who gave that talk those years earlier. And he becomes my teacher. He's also one of the first guys I ever let hold my hand, because I didn't do that before, but he was so loving, It was like, wow. And he's currently the abbot of the monastery. He's quite an amazing individual. So then I come back to Long Beach, and there's a little monk who needs a place to live. He's the guy who sold me the mala, and he becomes my roommate for the next bunch of years. Yeah. We lived together. And then they asked me to replace Losang Wangchu to drive the monks. So basically, they set me up back in 2003. And then all these years later, one thing led to another. Next thing I'm a monk, and I'm leading a tour. And just interesting, I became the tour leader in Aspen, Colorado. I wasn't supposed to be, but things came up. I was just observing. Losang had to leave, handed me the keys, the book, and I became the tour leader of monks in Aspen, Colorado. Who would know that one day I would live in Carbondale, Colorado, right down the road? So all this to say is that everything in our life matters. A conversation we had 20 years ago has an imprint on your life, and it affects yourself and it affects others. That we don't know in this given day where things might turn out. When I first went to, so let me first finish the story of Losang. So that's what I shared with him, how that conversation changed the trajectory of my life. And what an opportunity and a gift I'm grateful for. And then I shared some other things that I admired about him. And then here we are today, and would we be here today if I didn't have that conversation with him? You know, I went to go see the Dalai Lama. I was just an audience member. I was very touched, moved. I went to talk to my teacher. That would lead me to going to India, becoming a monk. When I came back from being that, they had me become the coordinator to host the Dalai Lama. So 2 years, like 2000, 2004, I'm in the audience listening to Dalai Lama. 2006, I'm a monk greeting the Dalai Lama, running the event at the Pasadena Civic Auditorium, and planning the event for the Universal Amphitheater as a monk. 2 years, I'm in the seat in the Civic Auditorium. 2 years later, I'm a monk greeting him, hosting him. I always tell people, be careful when you go see Dalai Lama, you just might get a haircut. And, things change. And then, all these other things happen. All of which leads us here to this moment. I'm living in Carbondale, not far from where I took that tour, and not far from where my daughter was born. And I'm a California kid. I really don't have any Colorado roots. Yet here we are, Dharma teaching. And so in this moment, can we ever really appreciate all the moments that happened over all the centuries that ripened us in our own lives to even be willing or interested in seeking the truth of things, to engage in a Buddhist path or teachings of this nature, and then all the things that had to happen for any one of us to be here, for this center to be here, and for me to have had a conversation with those I wanted to. And then all of you are here on your own journey. When we go back to this refuge prayer that we just quoted, that we just spent the last couple of teachings on, I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The refuge is fundamentally in reality, the nature of things, how we exist. The Dharma is about how we exist. The Dharma is about the truth of things. And the Buddha was able to shed some light. The Sangha are practitioners who help support and maintain and make these teachings available. And so this refuge is in reality. And refuge in those who have realized this reality. Who can help us? Part of this reality is that there are forces at work that I am unaware of, that I exist in dependence upon things I have no awareness of, people I've never met. My own teacher walking, when he was a 10-year-old kid across the Himalayas, landing at Ganden Monastery. And then, all that whole journey, invasion of China and all that stuff. And here we are with complete access to a path of freedom, of liberation, of teachings that unpack the ultimate nature of our own experience and the liberation from suffering. And my question is, when's the last time we thought about that? How many lives do we touch in our conversations, and how many lives have happened so that we can have this opportunity? the core of our issue in struggle and in suffering is a strong sense of being independent and separate. Right? That's the core thing. The core thing that the whole wheel of life, all of this experience starts with is fundamentally we are very strongly identified with our own identity and being separate from. Everything I just shared, kind of indicated really nothing about my life. It was, independent, nor us being here. And you may have never met Loso, won't you? But he's played a role in your life. You've never met my teacher, and yet he's played a role in our lives. There's somebody I've never met who has shaped who I am. And so going back to our fundamental beginning point, when I invite people to join in the refuge prayer, if you choose to, and it's always a choice. We've unpacked this. We're talking about I'm taking refuge, something that's safe, something I can depend upon, and it's the truth. And the people have realized the truth. And that is actually how we get free, is recognizing truth, recognizing the nature of things, how we exist. And it usually starts with how I do not exist. Right? Because that's my problem. I identify me and mine with that which is not me and mine. And then, I grab onto my personality traits and now I'm separate from. We start unpacking. Well, I'm not this anger. I'm not, even this body's changing moment to moment. And we start realizing there's nothing independent, separate, unchanging about me. So we start, unpacking that. But fundamentally, the first sentence here is recognizing the value of living in truth, that that's the safe place. And that all of my problems arise from delusion, from misunderstanding. I have a little slide here, maybe. I think I did have a little slide here. I think I put it away. But it gets down to the three root poison. So the wheel of life at its very core is based in misperception, ignorance. And from that, everything else expands. But if I don't have that misunderstanding, everything falls apart. This whole condition, samsara, my attachments, my grasping at people, places, and things, the exaggerated qualities I put on, my house, my car, my relationships, my kids, my grandkids, all of that crumbles. And Buddha nature, which is where we'll eventually get to in this text, if I ever stop talking about this verse, it's possible it could happen. I don't know. Is something that is present. It's primordial and it's unharmed. And the only thing obscuring that is our misperceptions, these obscurations of how I see myself and how I experience myself. And so all of the path is about breaking through misunderstanding, breaking through delusion, breaking through these obscurations. The second part of the verse, which we went into some depth with, is a very skillful path to get there, to do that, to accomplish that. And the positive potential I create by practicing the six perfections: generosity, ethics, patience, joy, effort, concentration, wisdom, may attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. Last week, we hit through these and we talked about their beneficial qualities and how they can help us just in day-to-day life, but they also can be expanded to the degree with which we engage in them to complete awakening Buddhahood. What I didn't point out last week was that three of them, ethics, concentration, and wisdom, are the three categories of the path of liberation, the freedom, the Noble Eightfold Path. And then these other ones, the generosity, joyous effort, and patience, are the skillful bodhisattva qualities that enhance the totality of the path. This one verse is what it's all about. And everything else we do in Buddhism is to learn how to do that. Sometimes you'll read this very short text and they'll say, everything you need in the path is there. And technically, yeah. But then the question is, okay, how do I practice wisdom? How do I develop concentration? How do I engage in joyous effort? And so everything that we do fundamentally is either contributing to this verse or it's not. I'm either taking refuge in the reality or I'm taking refuge in my addictions, my habits, my, grasping at people, places, and things in ways they don't exist. Or I'm trying to learn how they do. And most of us are somewhere in between. Parts of our day, we're kind of caught up in our own little thing. For example, those of you online, this is a cherry pie. You may have heard me speak on occasion about a slight interest in cherry pies. It's possible. Today, show up, and what happens? I have a cherry pie awaiting me. Thanks, Sam. And where did I go with that? Oh, generosity. And look at that, the generosity, the thinking of others, the giving that we have. These opportunities are available to us, or I can also just take a lot of refuge in a cherry pie, and in my mind, want to lose some weight in my eating habits. Pretty sure cherry pie is not going to do that. And so, how do I live in reality, in balance? And in balance in terms of being gentle and kind with myself, meeting myself where I am on the path. I'm not a Buddha yet. I'm not the Lama that was sitting in the room in 2003 giving that talk, right? I'm not the Dalai Lama. But I had a role model of someone I could visibly, tangibly experience who has that kind of heart, which was, it was moving for me. And, but, I'm not him. And yet he played a very important role in my life. And so as we engage in this path, we will be struggling sometimes with having a lot of knowledge, but an inability to put that knowledge to work. We'll have great aspirations about being kind and generous, and then not be. I might be selfish with my time. I might be generous. And then I think the biggest obstacle is, a self-critical mind. You're not this way yet. You should be like that. I know these teachings, but I'm not going to meditate today. It's going to do that. Prayers and practices, but there's a good Netflix series. Sam just shared one with me, by the way. So in this journey, and today I really wanted to talk about this because some of you are aware today's kind of a special day for me. It is the 40th anniversary of my recovery date. And so 40 years ago today, I began a journey of not using substances and seeking to improve my life. And I think that would be this entry point for the Dharma for me. And yesterday I was at a meeting and this woman made a comment, saying, I don't, I can't imagine, that I'll ever, I'm not where you're at, and I don't know that I'll ever get there, right? Which is kind of my thought with the teacher I was looking at. And this guy afterward came up to me and he said, the difference in my life is that I know I'm not going to get there, right? I'm where I'm at, and I'm not going to get there. And the truth is that what we're sharing is that his path and his awareness is enough. He doesn't need to get somebody else's, right? And he asked me, what is it? How were you able to do things? And my answer is very simple. I harmed a lot of people and I screwed up a lot of things. That's probably why I can do what I do today. I firmly believe that the capacity I have to have any little bit of wisdom today is born of all the harm that I've done, all the mistakes I've made, all the damage I've done, all the things that I've done, successfully learning how not to be happy, which became, as they would say, the mud that produces the lotus. And I was really good at screwing up things. Excellent. And this to say that wherever we're at on this journey, whether you're sitting, in an audience in a Dharma talk, whether you're giving a Dharma talk, or whether you meet someone like the Dalai Lama or not, the conditions have ripened for all of us to recognize that we have everything we need to engage in this path of understanding and liberation. But it begins with meeting ourselves where we're at, and that we're receiving support in unknown ways from people we've never met. And the conditions have ripened for us to have a Dharma center, to have a teaching, to have a capacity to have these teachings brought to us. We're supported in ways we can't even recognize most of the time. And we are at times not going to live up to that moment. And that's okay, because we're in samsara, not a Buddha yet. And those obscurations, those poor choices, those habits, that laziness, whatever is our thing in a given moment, is literally telling us about the opportunity of something we can work on. It's not a defect of character, as some would say. It is an opportunity to understand the work to be done. And with that kind of thing, we have the opportunity to progress in ways that are so much more effective than having some concrete view of, here's the teachings, here's the path, here's what I need to do, here's where I'm failing, and I'll never be like that. And that these models we have are somehow different than us in a way that we can't achieve. But their Buddha nature is no greater than yours. Our big problem is we just don't know. We just don't know. We just don't know it. but we have just as much as the Dalai Lama or Buddha. They don't have any more than us. The only thing that's different is they recognized it. And we have lots of habits, lots of conditionings. Next week, we're going to get into the 12 links of dependent origination, which is kind of how this works. But fundamentally, we do not progress by beating ourselves up. We progress by recognizing the wisdom that's being shown us about how to improve. And much of that wisdom comes from poor choices. Very little wisdom comes from smart choices. I don't know if you ever noticed that. You can do a lot of, things or learn a lot of things you don't even implement in your life. But we can remember some of the poor choices we made indelibly and are motivated to change our lives. So for me, a big journey began 40 years ago. And when the guy was asking me that question, what I realized, that where I get to be today is because of actually the harm I've done, which led me to the good I've done. And I think the biggest thing is not that I fell down, it's that I got up. And that's the whole journey. We just keep getting up. Just keep getting up. So having said that, I wanted to pause. I had a whole nother talk ready, but you know how that goes. Somebody puts a cherry pie in front of you, things go wild. Yeah, we might end early. So what I wanted to do, how much time we got left? That was my brief introduction. Is before we leave this and get into the 12 links, just check in with people on daily practice, on their path, any questions that you might have about practice, about Buddhism. Sometimes we go to all these teachings, we listen to things, we take notes, and we don't always have an opportunity to really ask something that's kind of been in our minds for a while about Buddhism or about path or how something works. I know that the Here and Now Center, you guys rarely, I think, have much opportunity to ask a question. And so I wanted to see if anyone, have a little bit of question answer period available to your practice, to this path. Any questions that have come up. So I'll pause there and see if we got any interest. Roxana.
I've observed that with Christianity, you have to accept Jesus as your savior, otherwise you're going to hell, potentially. Or with the Baha'i faith, you have to be one of the 144,000 to create the kingdom. And one of the things that I really liked about Buddhism was that you strive to attain enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings, all of them, no exceptions. And but then there's this idea that somehow our karma has ripened for us to even have accessibility and time and dedication and interest in the Dharma to explore it. And I'm just kind of curious about that, the idea of things being limited somehow. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm expressing this question correctly, but
things being limited, explain that a little bit more. What things being limited? That other people don't have this karma, or that other views are limited?
The idea that we have the opportunity or we're one of the 144,000, or we're one of those who accept Jesus.
Oh.
We're the ones that get to achieve whatever the goal is.
Mhm.
And others don't. And I understand that karma goes across lifetimes and that kind of thing, but I just really loved it that the prayers talk about doing whatever we do for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Mhm. Yeah. One, just a quick side note. And speaking with the many Catholic priests I've had opportunity, it is not in their belief system that you need to accept Jesus Christ to go to heaven. That is amongst the pervasive Protestant religions and so forth in Christianity, but Catholicism, they have their, I don't know, Second or Third Vatican or whatever, where they really have adopted a different view, recognizing that there's many people never got Christianity, so they don't go to hell, and so that's refreshing, and refreshing, and so. But in terms of us, right, there's very few rare and precious humans that have this opportunity and how karma ripens for us. And the thing about Buddhism is that everyone has Buddha nature. Nobody's limited. The only thing that gets limited is the causes and conditions around us. And so when you hear someone like Robina Corton give a talk, she's a nun, talks like a sailor. She's a pretty rough nun, does not hold back. And she's going to point out that mommy and daddy didn't do this to me, God didn't do this to me, that fundamentally we're doing it to ourselves, which is also then empowering that we're capable of undoing it. And as I say that out loud, you can also recognize how untrue that is also, because we don't do anything by ourselves and can't do anything by ourselves. And so there's layers of unfolding karma, but individual actions that we've engaged in either limit our view or increase our capacity to see. And so the beautiful thing there is that, and especially if you think in Buddhist terms of eons, we all have Buddha nature. We all, whether we're having this terrible life in this particular form right here, right now, that doesn't mean that's where you'll be. As a matter of fact, we don't know where anyone is. And from a Buddhist perspective, someone might see a person born in this world, have this abusive trauma early years, and then die, and people say how unfair that is, right? Young child. From a Buddhist view, that might have been someone whose last little bit of negative karma just got burned up and they're awakened. And we don't know. We don't know if that was that last little bit and now they're awakened. And so it's not, we can't see this in our current state. But it is said others can, as you develop your minds. And I've mentioned my teacher could see you, could see your mind, can do that. It was eerie, kind of feeling naked in front of somebody, you're going to see your mind and tell you something about yourself that you've never told them. And even stories where a group of monks, I know, I had someone call me, a group of monks had saw them in an airport, and the Lama stopped and said, I need to talk to you. And because they saw this bit and they should do this or that, and it's really important. It was about their life, and that person did that, and their physical thing, what was going to happen, went away and healed, and was trying to contact to try to find him, to get some other advice. And I've told the story of David Gonzalez, where that those things have happened. So there are times where someone may be of a quality to see something we can't see. But all of us have Buddha nature. All of us have this. And so in that way, it's very expansive. And how someone appears to us as being constricted, mean, or whatever, we don't know even if that person isn't appearing in that way to show us something about ourselves in that moment. Really interesting stories around things like that. David Gonzalez's grandmother, for example, who, if you ever read his book and survive it, yeah, I met him in person. He was, if you don't know, yeah, when I mentioned David Gonzalez, he was this very simple human being. He's about my age. This guy named David Gonzalez, lives in Seattle. Nothing remarkable about him except everything. And, he had these experiences when he was in his early 20s. I don't have time for all those stories, but even when he touched, he was at a coffee shop, he saw these 2 books on Buddhism. He looked at them, he read them, and he said he needed shamatha and bodhicitta, and that's what he needs to do with his life. Like, I could talk to you for 3 years, you may not get that. I'm not sure how I get it. He got it right away. And then he started practicing, and then one of my teachers from our monastery saw him on a tour, recognized him, said, "You learn Tibetan, I'm going to be back in a year." Because he knew who he was. He actually, they had lived together in Gandhi Chartsy Monastery in a previous life. And David could tell you everything about Gandhi Chartsy Monastery in Tibet, and he'd never seen it. But he could describe it to a detail. And anyway, this old Lama comes back, and he spends the next couple of years with David transmitting all these, giving the loom for all of these teachings and all these sadhanas. And David learned Tibetan, translated these incredible texts, and was this amazing being who just looked like a guy in Seattle. Even his little picture on his website, he's just kind of goofy guy in a t-shirt, just humble, just, but the experiences and the things that ripened in his lifetime, just remarkable stories. I got to live with him for a little bit. And so there's all these people and beings that we're surrounded by that look quite normal that we don't know about. And so it's very expansive. So even when we see someone struggling in certain ways, we don't know. We don't know what their karma is. We don't know what they see. We don't know why they're here. But everyone we meet has the capacity to teach us something about ourselves. So very expansive in that way. That's my usual short answer to a question. Kurt?
There's a guy mowing the lawn right outside the window, so if it gets too loud, I'll stop. But I've got, we're going to a retreat at Sravasti next weekend, and it's a concentration retreat, Labor Day, and I have the opportunity to
come out with shamatha, right?
I guess I don't know much about it. I know I'm not gonna be able to talk for 5 days, which sounds like a horror to me, but I think I'll be all right since you've taught me. But I don't know if my identity will survive. But I get the opportunity to take refuge, and I've been contemplating it seriously. Take the vows, and I'm good on 4 of them. One of them I'm not so good on. I've got a nicotine habit that I want to be the kind of guy who wants to quit. And I'm not. And I don't know whether it makes sense. I mean, I've done it before. I know I can do it. I don't know what what the unwillingness is in me. But is it? And I know enough not to take the vow that I know I'm going to break, or that I suspect I will break. The intoxicants vow, and I'm also wondering if I should wait until I'm ready to take all 5 of them, or can I take 4 of them? I don't know what to think about that.
So different teachers will have different offerings. Yeah. There are some teachers that say just take 3 or whatever. But these 5, and for those of you listening, there's these 5 precepts that one takes when refuge, taking refuge, no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct. He's talking, and you're here with this around intoxicants, and you're seeing nicotine as an intoxicant, right?
I see it as my friend. I'm not sure that's correct, but
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's
yeah.
not a friend. I think we can work on that delusion right off the bat. But did some teaching you received somewhere place nicotine in that category of intoxicant?
Venerable Children says tobacco. Now it's not tobacco. I use my loophole generator, right? Has a loophole there, but I don't think that's correct. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
I mean, she places tobacco in there.
right.
Yeah. And so, yeah. So anyway, my question.
Okay. Yeah, great question. And when we take these vows and precepts, right, we want to take them with a wholehearted intention that we're going to do our best to uphold them. And believe it or not, sometimes people don't uphold them. As a matter of fact, there's 253 monastic vows that are pretty impossible to keep. And we want to take them with wholeheartedness. And I would also say that there are some certainly Buddhist teachers that would not see tobacco as an intoxicant. As a matter of fact, there's monks in Thailand smoking cigarettes and all that stuff. And but you're taking refuge with a teacher that does. So that the point is, honoring, if I'm taking refuge with this teacher and this is their view and these are their teachings, it's important to honor that. So, the smart thing is shop around for one who doesn't, and then you're good. I'm
glad to see 40 years has
40 years of rationalization.
Such wisdom.
But yeah, no, honestly, me personally, I haven't seen that as an intoxicant. However, having said that, when we take refuge, we're really, it's nice to have a direct relationship with that teacher and have full faith as best we can and honor, their teachings. And so, I'm just going to let you know tobacco's not good for you, or nicotine, or whatever we call it, whatever it manifests. It would be a kindness to your body to have an aspiration to learn to quit. And taking a vow might be that extra little bump that might help you become more successful. And people do not keep vows. It's pretty rare to keep them super purely. What we do is we purify. So thinking about these precepts and vows, I want to uphold them. I'm going to do my best to uphold them. And, I can repair them. So actually, I would personally, my advice, if you want to take refuge again with Bhikshuni Tutin children, and you value her as a teacher in that way, we want to honor that, and we want to take those vows when you feel like you're really ready to make that commitment, and not worry about whether you can or cannot. Put that aside.
Okay.
Put that aside. The aspiration is I'm going to learn to, right? I really want to. I'm dedicated to learning how to uphold that.
That's super helpful. Thanks.
You're welcome. I know this other guy will give you some vows that, down the street.
Yeah, I've met a lot of those guys in my life.
Yeah. We want to avoid them. All right. Martha. Boy, are we recording this? I better watch what I say. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I was thinking and have come across mentioning of a Buddhist tradition, or more maybe not a tradition, this practice of secular Buddhism. And I'm wondering if you might comment on how, because as I learn a little bit about that, I see there's quite a lot of what you teach, John, that seems, even though you are a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner and teacher, I'm still seeing that you apply it to the world as we know it also, being that I'm not a nun, and I haven't been to India, and I don't practice the traditional as I learn about it. So my interest has been piqued about, is there something more that the secular Buddhist practitioners and teachers, I can't remember the fellow's name, David something, that I've come across. So I wondered if you might just talk about that.
Yeah, they don't offer more, they offer less. Okay. What they offer is meaningful, but it's limited, that's all. It's an interesting word, secular Buddhism. In India, secular doesn't mean you don't believe in things. Secular means you're open to all traditions, all ways of thinking, all ways of being. A secular country like India embraces Hinduism and Muslim, and so it's a very different view on secular. Here in our mind, the idea of secular Buddhism, a lot of times called this sort of view, is basically taking the parts of Buddhism that work for them, which would be also good in modern therapeutic processes that can be very helpful for people to live a good, meaningful life in samsara. And so it's very helpful. But that's as far as it'll go. So it doesn't offer more, it offers less. So when we talk about what we're doing here is, you can do all that here, but the door's still open for more. Does that make sense? Yeah. I always found it a weird title, secular Buddhism. Meaningful Buddhist methods or skills, or something like that. Yeah. I don't know. So again, if you're a human being and you want to learn some of these skills to live a good life in samsara and suffer less, it can offer that very well. But they exclude the idea of awakening, so that door is just not open. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. I think that part of what I do not see or understand at this point in my very early studying of the Buddha teachings is the rebirth and that the merit, and how it'd be easy if I believed all that, then I would have a different perspective on what my day-to-day existence and life is about. And it seems, and that the merit for other lifetimes, it seems to be almost like, the Catholic, the confession, and that then you go on and, you get born again, in the Protestant, you get born again and all is forgiven, and you can get born again over and over and over. So you get to be, misbehave maybe and still be forgiven over and over. And it seems like this Buddhist thinking of, well, I can do that in my next lifetime. I can stop misbehaving. And
Yeah, Buddhism doesn't say you can stop, next life. But there are Buddhists who will think like that.
you could
interpret
it that way.
Yeah. And again, that's, as we've had many talks along these ways, is not adopting a belief system that doesn't make sense. And so that's why we always try to present these same teachings in the same way that you might receive, again, in an approach of just being a human being who wants to live a good life, apply some of these things that are practical, meaningful. And but my thought process is, why close the door unnecessarily? Why not just, I don't know about that. which leaves a door open for, as I discover things, well, maybe that is, or maybe it's not. The closing of a door, I think, is harmful.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, when I've read in, particular texts that enlightenment does not mean you are free of all mental afflictions. When, the whole definition of Buddhism is enlightenment is freedom from all mental afflictions. I sit there and I think that's not Buddhism. What it is, kind of an American version of taking what we like about stuff, applying it in ways that make sense to us, and modifying it to suit our predispositions. And Buddhism is about waking us up to reality, not my preconceived ideas, and collecting the things that support the way I see myself in the world. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but it's also useful and very helpful. Chris, and then I will go to Greta.
Yeah, this is kind of a more philosophical, but I'm just, I was sitting in a tent last night and I was wondering, like, how can a mosquito, which if mosquitoes are a sentient being and they're on this path, can you lay out some schema where a mosquito could she move on?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if everyone heard that, but talking about a mosquito has Buddha nature, how can a mosquito move on? And basically, you kill a mosquito, they die, take a new form. And that new form might be more conducive to a human form and so forth.
But how are they going to cultivate merit?
Well, the merit's been going on and on way before it was a mosquito and way after it's a mosquito. So that's just a temporary form they're in.
Right, and then just second question. So you talked about this, like if you're born in, one of the things that I like, we talked about being born into the hell realm, and it's not a permanent burn hellfire forever.
Mm-hmm. That is an improvement.
It's an improvement, yeah. So that you can escape that. But are you born in the hell realm in various forms, or is it in the human form, or how can I conceptualize?
Yeah, we're going to unpack a little bit more of the in sort of a thing. And part of a hell realm could be in this human form, like it's in a war zone, and what's going on in Ukraine, for example, right now, or Gaza. We want to talk about a hell realm, right? And it's always, the thing about Buddhism is it's not the place or the form or the body, it's our perception of who we are and our experience. And so my consciousness is seeing me as John in a human form in this way right now. And it would see myself very different in a very painful, difficult situation, kind of a hell realm mind. And, we can see obviously humans who live in that kind of mind as well, And we could also see animals that kind of live in that kind of thing as well. So let's go to Greta, just because of time. Because, we will unpack a little bit of sort of the wheel of life thing. Yeah. Greta.
Hey,
Hey.
thank you thank you so much for the talk. One thing I just wanted to ask a question about is something new has been coming up in meditation, and I think you've mentioned it before. Many people have. It's like this, it's almost like nihilism. It's a weird thing. I mean, like sometimes when I'm sitting there, I don't understand, kind of like what Martha was saying, like if there's all this reincarnation, and I just get like kind of confused, and everything seems like meaningless if with all the layers of consciousness and action and cause and effect and everything like that. I don't know if I'm being clear, but I'm thinking maybe it's now that I'm talking about it out loud, I'm thinking it's just like another mental state, perhaps, that one just can sit through and come out to the other side. I don't know, but it's like this meaninglessness, like, yeah, all the cycles just repeating themselves over and over again. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense to me because enlightenment seems kind of so utterly unattainable. But I have an aspiration, and that's cool. However, there's this other thing there too. And I was wondering maybe if, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but I'm trying to be as articulate as possible.
Yeah. Well, actually, you're describing the most common thing that the Buddha and Buddhists warn about is misunderstanding the opportunity of this life. One can lead to nihilism, that nothing really matters, in which Martha's also pointing out people next life, nothing really matters. And actually that's the worst place to be. That's almost worse than consciously being a bad person. Because you're just going to so much more harm to yourself and your experience. So it's so harmful to have that frame of mind, because everything matters, right? Everything's meaningful, everything's important, and what we think, say, and do all leaves an imprint, and what we think, say, and do creates our patterns and our habits and how we experience our lives. And so if, for example, I would like to be happy and feel good about who I am, I have to do things that will help me feel good about who I am and be happy. There has to be a cause and a result. So once you throw away cause and result, wow, you want to talk about the pain and suffering of the results we're going to have from not creating the causes of living a good and meaningful life. And then people engage in activities that, in seeking temporary pleasures that create a lot of harm and patterns and habits, and a lot of damage. So in understanding karma, and whether you believe in rebirth or not doesn't really matter, in this life, creating the causes for a meaningful and purposeful life is critical. It's critical how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to others, what we do. And if you do believe in something beyond this life, then all these things are creating the conditions to understand and have access to it. If you don't believe in something beyond this life, all these causes and things that we do are either going to create a meaningful, happy life that you have currently right now, or not. But when you go to nihilism, you lose the capacity to create those causes for the meaning, the purpose, the worthiness, the resiliency in life.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't stay there. I was very suspicious of this. I don't spend a lot of time swimming around in that kind of energy in my meditation or in my day-to-day life. And I guess like my take ended up being on it like, well, whether it's meaningless or not, I still have to go to work and I still get, not that I have to, I get to go to work and I get to interact with people in my neighborhood and hear in the Dharma talk and all that good stuff. And I might as well, stay aligned with my values and like do the next right thing either way, and this too shall pass kind of energy, even though that's not a Buddhist saying, you know what I mean?
Oh, it very much is, though, impermanence.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
very much.
right. Thank you.
Yeah. And, here's the other thing that's important to point to, and I think this is kind of the problem with, I think, sort of Western American mind, is we have no idea what we're capable of, right? Enlightenment seems some faraway thing, and you might be right on the cusp of it. 40 years ago, there's no way I thought I would have the life I have today. I mean, it wasn't even, it was beyond anything I could imagine. And yet now I have this life today. I was living on my mom's couch. I was addicted. I had lost everything that was meaningful to me. I didn't, I had shame, I had guilt, I had all these things. There's no way I would be a Buddhist monk. Come on. Like, not in the cards. So in our mind now, there's things that seem so improbable. But the way we make them possible is by engaging in the path to get there, right? And so 40 years ago, it was little steps of doing these little tiny things, which one day would create these other things. When I see the Dalai Lama and think, well, I'm not like him, I actually see an example of what I could be like, not what's so far away. And there's a human who's actually done it. Like, wow, that's kind of cool. So I think our minds, we often get trapped into thinking, about what doesn't make sense or what I'm incapable of. And, as I've mentioned, I lived with this guy, David Gonzalez, and, just to tell you stories about another human being I lived with who was phenomenal and lived and saw and experienced things that, no normal human experience could explain, or, the teachers I get to live with. So the difference, I think, in my life is 40 years ago, there's no way I would have been around, or even if I was around these people, I wouldn't even know anything about them. Those doors were shut to me. But slowly and methodically, as you engage in merit and wisdom, obscurations dissipate. The windshield is no longer dirty. The conditions ripen in different ways. And, I had no idea I would meet Losang Wangchuk in a parking lot. I had no idea when I'm sitting there watching the Dalai Lama as a lay person that 2 years later, I would be in Buddhist robes greeting the Dalai Lama and running that event. Right? We don't know. Yet our mind thinks we do. Right? We think I could never do that, or this wouldn't be like that, or that wouldn't be like that. And keeping doors open, being curious, and engaging in concrete, practical things that I can do right here, right now, that create causes for my happiness and well-being, that are tangible, that I can relate to, engage in a path that leads us to things that you have no idea about today, but you might discover tomorrow. But if I close the door on it, I'll never know. And everything matters, right? Everything matters. And as I mentioned, all that harm I did really mattered to help me be who I am today. Okay, one more, but yeah, we're going to get ready to wrap up. There's a cherry pie. Did I mention that? Yeah. Go ahead, Roxanne.
Do you know what Losang's going to be doing when he, quote
No,
unquote?
I don't think he knows what he's going to be doing. Yeah. As long as I've known him, all he ever talked about was, go on retreat. I have to run these damn tours. And then when he's not running the tours, he's not on retreat. So I don't know. But yeah, you want to know if there's more to life than our human condition, hang out with Losang Wangchuk for a week. Yeah, he's spicy too. Yeah. All right. Well, good. Hopefully this was a rich discussion. I found it to be so. And starting with, Roxana bringing out the not being limited. That's kind of the key. I feel the idea is to be curious, to be discerning, to investigate, and recognize that there's more to you than we give ourselves credit for. Yeah. And be gentle with ourselves. That's where I started. Be gentle with ourselves. Meet ourselves where we're at. Don't try to be something you're not. and see that value that's there. Let's go ahead and dedicate the merit and wisdom, whether or not you believe in merit. Hopefully you believe in wisdom, and for the benefit of others and for our own continued spiritual growth. And I clicked on the incorrect button here, but that has given me wisdom to learn how to click on the correct button. All right. So our time and energy here has hopefully been meaningful for you. And again, you know, the way we're interrelated, the way we engage with others as a result of our time affects others, just as the conversation so many years ago, 20 years ago, affected my life, now affects our lives. So let us dedicate the merit and wisdom that we have cultivated from our time together for the benefit of all beings and for our own continued spiritual growth, that we may be able to engage in a path of truth, to understand ourselves and our experience, and be of benefit to others. Those who care to, let us dedicate by this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forever. All right. Thank you all so much. Such a gift to be with all of you. A joy to celebrate the day. And if those who care to remember, one piece of cherry pie, it's available. All right. Lots of love to you all. Please be well. Take good care of yourselves and good care of those around you.
Thanks, John. Happy
Thank you,
birthday.
John.
Dare do dare, do re so ha. Om dare do dare, do re so ha. Om dare do dare.